So I've got a question here from Andrew Grunwald. He says, hello from South Africa. How important do you think the role pipe bands play in keeping the kilt culture alive, as opposed to pure fashion or lifestyle? In South Africa, it seems predominantly pipe band driven.
That's a really good question.
Yeah. One thing we've said often is that the kilt stuff, the heritage of kilts and culture, it always goes back to the traditions. It always goes back to the standard bearers. It goes back to the people wearing it traditionally, not like sans underwear traditionally, but worn as a full outfit traditionally. It goes back to pipe bands and those guys carrying the torch of it into the future kind of thing. Mm-hmm. There will always be fashion. There will always be people wanting to play with it. There will always be people wanting to interpret it in their own way or wear it, as a fashion accessory or as a thing, as a plaything to some degree. Mm-hmm. But you always, always, always go back to the thread of tradition and of heritage. Because without that, if it loses the heritage, if it loses the tradition, if it loses that story and that association, then it's just a fashion plaything and means nothing. And that's when it just starts to evaporate. And when it becomes uncool, it just goes away. So you absolutely need pipe bands. You need the standard bearers to be there. I think on the other side of it, you can still play with it. You can still have fun with it. You can still make it your own, but you need the balance on either end of the fulcrum.
Yeah. I would agree. I think also this is kind of gets vague, but you keep saying standard bearers, and the other point I want to make is that it's also very much the military. Now in Scotland, unlike South Africa, you have the tourist industry, which has helped, and kilts and traditional Highland stuff, not just Highland dress, but Highland culture, Scottish culture, has gone in and out of the zeitgeist around the world over the years. I mean, we talk about this often with going all the way back to King George's visit in 1822 and the rise of Scottish nationalism. And that actually continued well through the 20th century as a common drone note, shall we say, of tourism. Tourism, earlier than most people realize, even into the 18th century, was something that was drawing people up to Scotland. And the romanticism of it was always kind of there. In terms of the visuals, it came down to the regiments, the Highland regiments, and the pipers. And most of the time that was what it was, unless at a particular time in history or in world awareness of culture, something pinged. Like there are certain times like World War II, there are examples of, when Americans first started seeing England, seeing Britain, being stationed in Scotland before D-Day, and they started running into this stuff. And I was like, bing! And lo and behold, you start having a few movies coming out in the 50s based around Scotland, like Wee Geordie was a movie which I was just looking at some art for recently. Little things just kind of popped to the surface in the zeitgeist and in popular culture. But the military side of it and the musical side of it with the pipers is always there, just always. And if you look at like whiskey advertising, both good and bad, in the UK and also in America, it's almost always like a bagpiper, or it's the old country gentleman in his kilt, with the huge sideburns, and his tweeds. So I think that's kind of there as kind of an icon. In terms of actually having the culture going in a material sense, it's been weddings and funerals for the most part, until, as we were saying earlier, recently when more people have gotten into, hey, this is not just something I should say for special occasions. I can enjoy this anytime I want. And heck, it's also comfortable and looks good. Win. But yeah, absolutely true. My earliest memories of the kilt were movies I was watching with my dad, like freaking Gunga Din, old movies, and bagpipers, and it's definitely a standard bearer for sure. Not the only one is the real takeaway I'm trying to give, but very important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for the military nod. It's yes, 100% that just as well as the bagpipe bands.
Very much so.
Yeah. Cool. Hope that helps. So I almost missed a big one there in the military. I don't know how that almost slipped my mind. What else did we miss? What are the things that drive the culture and are the stalwarts? They are the standard bearers for the culture. What are the things that you can look back on and will always be there Tell us down in the comments.